Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch One. Thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at a watch that holds a special place in the history of the great haute horlogerie manufacturer Richard Mille. This is the Richard Mille RM16 automatic extra thin, 50 millimeters by 38 millimeters wide in brushed and polished titanium. In 2007, this model became the very first Richard Mille to utilize an ultra-thin rectangular case form. As such, it occupies a special place in the Richard Mille collection of watches. Not just rugged, not just avant-garde, but remarkably slim, discreet. You could almost say that this is Richard Mille's take on a formal watch. Now you can see on my wrist 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference. The fit is outstanding, not just from side to side, but also in terms of thickness. Now the entire watch is only 8.25 millimeters thick, and I have to say, the sort of seat of the wrist impression is that it's actually less. Very flat, very low in profile. This is a watch that's a world removed from the huge, thick, chunky, almost architecturally inspired tonneau cases of the Richard Mille line. Likewise, a world removed from the oversized round watches like the RM28 and the RM60. This watch keeps a low profile in more ways than one, but it's unmistakably Richard Mille. Everything that touches the wrist is of the highest quality, from the flat and regular titanium case back, which has a little bit of curvature to start to conform to the wrist as it meets its periphery, to the high quality bi-material Kevlar and calfskin leather strap, very soft on the bottom, exceptional quality, as is the double deployant clasp. And there's some clever thinking going on here, because oftentimes I feel with a friction fit clasp, you run the risk of it popping open, perhaps, under extreme conditions. No such problem with Richard Mille, who incorporates a thoughtful leaf spring to pop the clasp open when you want it to. Also features a gorgeous finishing contrast between brushed and polished elements, and then snaps it closed and keeps it closed when you don't want it to open. Likewise, recapitulates the use of the spline screw that you'll see throughout the case and the movement of this watch. Beautifully finished, beautifully engineered, in titanium like the rest of the watch. Outstanding lightness. That's the other impression I received when I put this watch on my wrist. The combination of an exceptionally spare, thin, partially composite strap and that ultra-thin skeletonized case, or skeletonized movement inside a spare titanium ultra-flat case. This watch weighs about as much as a typical 34 or 35 millimeter steel watch on a strap. It weighs less on the wrist than something like an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Bumblebee, the forged carbon. This is the kind of watch that's so comfortable, so soft against the skin, so light on the wrist that you literally will steal furtive, panicked glances at your wrist during meetings, wondering if it's still there. It's that kind of watch. And the bottom line is, the engineering that goes into this timepiece to produce that lightness is the highlight of the entire RM16. Now you start with a titanium case. The case features alternating brushed and polished finish, and you can see that to great effect from this side. You can see that the polished edges are the only highlights, featuring gleaming metal. Likewise, the spline screws are polished, but the case itself, with the exception of these chamfered polished edges, is entirely a vertical grained brushed titanium, and that's true on both sides. Now, material highlights continue with a combination of a white gold and ceramic crown. The crown itself is ceramic, alternately matte and brushed. It has a texture to it, and you can sort of see the textured facets of the crown as I rotate it, but this conical element on the end is white gold. Just a little secret between you and your watch. That's Richard Mille's nod and a wink, acknowledging that while this watch may be flat and it may be light and it may be high-tech, it's nevertheless rooted in the traditions of high horology and premium timepieces, that little flash of white gold. Inside, you could see that the caliber RM-AS7 is extensively skeletonized, and you can see most of it through the sapphire. It's a completely open dial, so to speak. Underneath the sapphire, you can see that the numerals have been printed on the interior of the crystal itself, and then you can see the date window right here at about 7 o'clock. There's a separate sapphire clear but for the numerals printed on it, and it moves over a light colored date disc, and that little disc sort of backlights or illuminates the date on any given day. Everything else, from the motion works to the keyless works of the movement, is there for you to appreciate. So it's a watch that really takes its engineering and brings the machine from the inside out. Just enough of that traditional Richard Mille stacked or layered architectural style case remains on the outside, but make no mistake, on the inside, this is very much a Richard Mille, the aesthetic of the machine that's salient. That's what you see on the dial. On the case back, the theme continues. Now, the RMAS7 movement features twin barrels. It features a 50-hour power reserve. It does have stop seconds capability, so when you pull the crown, it hacks, stopping the balance for precise synchronization to a reference clock. But there's a lot of original thinking going here. Despite the fact that it has a 50-hour power reserve, you may say, well, 50 hours doesn't seem a lot for twin barrels, so what's going on? The idea is absolute chronometric precision, a more regular release of mainspring torque over the course of that 50 hours, rather than running out a long power reserve, have a very precise 50 hours. Precision is the operative word here, from the way the watch is engineered to the way the watch is finished. Even elements as supposedly elementary as the winding rotor become works of mechanical metallic art on a Richard Mille. You could see that there's a variable inertia rotor alternately in white gold and titanium. You can see each of these winding wings, respectively, each in white gold, can be moved inward or outward to change the moment of inertia of the winding rotor itself, depending on the user's activity level. So if you're very active, you may want to decrease the moment of inertia to prevent excessive winding. Or if you are very sedentary and you're wearing the watch perhaps more as an elegant take on the Richard Mille continuity, well, then you can actually set it to have a greater moment of inertia, so it's more likely to freewheel and wind the system as aggressively as possible. Now you can see all elements of the bridges have been extensively skeletonized to give a full view of the works. You can see the mainspring barrels themselves partially skeletonized. The idea is to bring the machine from the inside out, and even in a watch this thin, Richard Mille manages to do that, giving the movement, giving the interior of the case, the architecture of the watch, exceptional depth from front to back or from back to front, depending on which side you're looking at. Now there's more at play here. Like I said, even the rotor itself is a complex but visually elegant solution to the challenges of high horology engineering. At center, ceramic rotor bearings allow unlubricated operation of the rotor, first for greater efficiency, and second, for reduced long-term maintenance. Operating without lubricant, they don't need to be re-lubricated, and with rotational cyclic life estimates of over 1.5 million rotations, they will outlast you, rest assured. Also a unidirectional winding system, because studies have shown that on the wrist, unidirectional winding, that is, the rotor that winds only in one direction and freewheels in the other, will wind the watch more efficiently and faster. This watch is all about attention to detail, and no detail, including mechanical efficiency, is overlooked. Now, 32 jewels, dual barrels, 8.25 millimeters thick. There is one last element that I want to add, and it's the integration of the movement into the case, and it's part of the heritage of Richard Mille as a manufacturer that pushes boundaries. The bottom line is that although I called this Richard Mille's formal watch, in a manner of speaking, inasmuch as it's a fairly versatile, low-profile, potentially elegant timepiece when worn with a dress ensemble, the bottom line is that RMAS7 movement is nevertheless isolated from shocks. You can see the spline screws that anchor it to the case at each corner, and each of these spline screws actually retains the movement on a suspended chassis that's cushioned from the case shocks via a system of damping elastomers. So while this watch could be worn as quote-unquote Richard Mille's dress watch, the bottom line is it remains as rough and ready as any other RM. This is the Richard Mille RM16 automatic extra flat, titanium, ultra light, ultra thin, and ultra versatile, available on our website, Watch You Want.